Hey, welcome back to my channel. Today I would like to talk to you about a new book release that I read just a few weeks ago. And to be honest, I was actually thinking for some time if I want to post a review on this book or not. Well, because personally I found it quite difficult for me to read this book just because of the few factors that I will try to explain in this review. But at the same time, I think there are quite a few interesting moments about this book that I would like actually to highlight and probably just bring some attention to this book because probably many people didn't really hear about it because it's a debut book and I don't think it's really popular on BookTube at the moment. But anyway, this book is Dengue Boy by Michel Nieva. So in Dengue Boy, we found ourselves in the future of our planet in 2272. And we see Earth after an environmental collapse when majority of the surface of the planet is not habitable anymore. It is all flooded after the permafrost and all the ice caps melted, or it's just too hot for the humans to live there. And we see that in this book we have only pretty much two areas that are still habitable by humanity, just because even though they are quite hot, but they're still suited for the humanity. One of these parts is part of Argentina. This is Argentinian archipelago. And another part of the planet that which is still suited for the humanity is Antarctica. Both of these areas are quite hot and they're named a New Caribbean. So we have Argentinian Caribbeans and Antarctic Caribbeans. And we start our story in La Pampas, Victorica, which is in Argentinian Caribbeans. And we see our main protagonist, Dengue Boy. Dengue Boy is a mutant child. He is a crossbreed between a human and a mosquito. And throughout this book, we see Dengue Boy going on an adventure, trying to actually discover his origins, trying to understand himself, his nature, and uncovering some truth about the humanity itself. This book is a cross between sci-fi with some amazing ideas, body horror, and a satire on corporate greed. So please bear in mind that this book is very gory and gross. If you're like me and you're not the biggest fan of body horror, probably you will not really appreciate it because sometimes it gets very grotesque. But at the same time, I found the ideas in the sci-fi part of the book very fascinating. And this is actually was the reason why I kept pushing myself to finish this book in the end. The main ideas that I found personally very fascinating in this book, actually exploration of this corporate greed. Because in this future, we see that the economy is being controlled by large corporations that are exploiting these viruses and pandemics caused by this new virus. Because after the permafrost and all the ice caps melted on the planet, humanity found these re-emerging viruses that were sleeping for centuries under the ice, and they're re-emerging and causing these new pandemics. And these large corporations are actually studying these viruses and effects of these viruses on the humanity, on the economy, and how they're driving an economy in which sectors. And they started packaging them in these financial indexes named after these new emerging viruses and pandemics, and trying to analyze how these new emerging viruses and pandemics will drive certain industries up in the market. So we see that the economy is actually driven by these new viruses and pandemics and how they're affecting the economy. The plot of the book has a very turbulent structure, which I found a little bit challenging, but at the same time quite interesting. So the plot is split between different POVs. We have three main POVs. Is Dengue Boy, our mutant cross between a child and a human child and a mosquito. And we also follow Rene. She is a daughter, a spoiled daughter of one of the executives from these corporations that I discussed previously. And we also follow El Dulce, who is a 12-year-old delinquent boy. He lives in the same area with the Dengue Boy, and they meet during a summer camp. So the plot is actually jumping between these different POVs, but at the same time it jumps geographically and in different timelines. So you as a reader will have to piece it all together. It is a little bit warped, but at the same time, if you manage to put this puzzle all together, probably you'll find it fascinating. So as you can see, our narrative is actually driven by children point of views. And the main protagonist is obviously Dengue Boy. And Dengue Boy is going through a very interesting transformation and realization in the beginning of the book. So after years of neglect and bullying, obviously he's not really loved by his peers just because of his unusual appearance. And it seems like he's neglected by his mother as well. And after an incident in a summer camp, when we actually meet El Dulce as well, Dengue Boy goes through a realization and a personal transformation. He realized that he is not he, but she. And at the same time, Dengue Girl realizes that she's just sick and tired of this life, all this bullying and neglect. And she goes on this violent rampage when she's trying to avenge herself, her mother, and probably humanity. This is a moment of personal catharsis for our main protagonist. And that these two moments are coincided, and I think this is not a coincidence, and this is the moment that drives the rest of the story forward. As I already mentioned, I personally found the ideas explored in this book the strongest part of this story. And even though I wasn't really on board with some other parts of the book, like for instance grotesque violence and lots of very challenging sexual references in this book, I still found this book interesting just on the exploration of the ideas. And the first thing that I found very interesting is the way Michel Nieva was discussing inequality in this book. Because we follow the story from point of view of children, we see inequality from their point of view and how it affects children. We see sharp inequality divide between poor and rich of this future planet. And we see a representation of the rich via Renée, who is a spoiled daughter of one of the executives of this new mega corporations. Renée and her family had to move to Pampas, Caribbean, this area of Argentina, after her father was appointed to this new role to investigate this emergence of a new virus and its effect on the economy. And for Renée, it was quite a harsh transition because she grew up in the more prestigious Antarctic Caribbean. So she sees this new surrounding and people in Pampas Caribbean as much more inferior than her previous surrounding. She absolutely despises her new potential friends. She absolutely hates the surrounding where she lives, and she spends majority of her time just playing video games. But at the same time, we see reaction of Dengue Girl when she gets to that area and how beautiful she finds it. Because she never even thought that this beauty is possible. Because the poor of this future planet live in filth and toxic waste, and they have to pretty much survive. They work multiple jobs. They have zero prospects, and they're just neglected by the rich of this new generation. And this economic divide is actually highlighted by beloved children console in the game. We see two versions of this console in the game, Pampatronics and a cheaper Chinese version, Pampatron. And only rich children can afford Pampatronics, with poor children playing only on Pampatron, even if they can actually afford it at all. And the most popular game on this console is Christians versus Indians, which is set in our past and is a conquest game where Christians are trying to exterminate Indians and get all the land and resources. And the telling part is that the rich children pay for Christians and the poor children play for Indians. And I found it very fascinating how Michel Nieva managed to play on this socioeconomic divide via this video game. Because we see that poor children are disadvantaged right at the beginning of the game. Because first of all, they are playing on this slower, cheaper version of this console, Pampatron. They normally don't have stable internet connection. Their console is slower because it has less power, and they're regularly crashing. And every time they're trying to progress in the game, their game is crashing and they're killed, and they have to start from the beginning. With Christians at the same time progressing smoothly. And I found the sequel to this game absolutely amazing because it's so telling. Because the second part of the game, the sequel to this, Christians versus Indians, have only Christians with Indians exterminated. And I already mentioned the economic system on the future world. I'll not be repeating myself, but I found it very interesting. But another thing I would like to actually mention about it, that these mega corporations managed not only package these viruses and pandemics in these financial market indexes, but they also managed to package ecosystems. Since majority of the nature and ecosystems on the planet died out after this environmental collapse, these mega corporations are packaging these ecosystems for sale to different companies. So if, for instance, you want to create Amazonian ecosystem on a different planet or in a different part of Earth, you purchase it as a set package from this mega corporation. They create this tightly packaged product, this ecosystem for you, where you can pre-select a certain number of features. You can add them and you can buy it, and you can recreate this ecosystem where you want, probably in a different planet, because it seems like humanity moved to different planets, like for instance Mars, and you can create your new Amazonian region on Mars. But at the same time, since these packages are pretty much set and you can just select certain features from the list, all these ecosystems appear very similar. And it reminds me of this experience, the shopping experience in retail, where you go, you see certain products, you choose from the list of certain products, you're happy to buy it, but at the same time, you see lots of people wearing the same stuff. So in this future, ecosystems become products. So this book discusses social economic inequality, corporate greed, how far certain corporations can go in order to achieve their financial goals and what they're willing to sacrifice in the end. But at the same time, we get glimpses of anarchy and this primordial horror. And this is for the readers who are fans of cosmic horror, of this all-encompassing fear and unknown, because we see the mentioning of it throughout the book and we get some revelation in the end. I actually personally was really looking forward to maybe deeper revelations, just to get a little bit maybe more information on this horror part of the book. Unfortunately, probably didn't really work out for me totally, but at the same time, I found it very fascinating. Okay, I tried highlighting the interesting parts of the book, and as already mentioned, I found the ideas of the book are the strongest part of the story. And that's what kept me going in my journey with this book, even though I tried abandoning it halfway through, but at the same time I managed to finish it. And I'm actually glad, because I think it's quite a original story. And yes, I'm just actually proud of myself for finishing it. At the same time, I just want to tell you which part of the book didn't work for me. And if you're like me, if these sort of things don't work for you, maybe just think twice before you decide to read it. So as I said already, if you don't like lots of gore in your books, probably you will not be a huge fan of it. And another thing that I didn't really appreciate about this book is sexual references, because I personally found them very grotesque, especially one scene pretty much in the end of the book. That was very twisted. Yes, I didn't personally really like it. But, well, if you don't mind this sort of things, or if you like them, I think you will really enjoy it. Didn't work for me, but well, we're all different. At the same time, I did feel at times that this is a debut novel because of some unnecessary repetitions, and some things that didn't really make sense from time to time. It's definitely not happening all the time, just a few places here and there, but I did feel it. But I think it can be expected from a debut novel, and I don't really think that it should deter you from picking up this book if you're interested in the rest of the things that I mentioned before. All in all, I personally found it quite a challenging read. It is grotesquely violent and sexual, but at the same time, it has very interesting ideas. And one of the positives about this book, it is very short. And even if you're like me and you find that quite a challenging read at some point, you don't need to read it for 1,000 pages. It's actually just about 200 pages. It is very short and you can just explore it. And even if you don't like it, you can just put it down and maybe just a finish, and it will not consume a whole month of your reading. I really hope you liked this review and you found it informative. As I said, it was a challenging read for me, but I think for the right reader, it will be their new favorite. And I really hope you'll be one of them. See you soon.